All right, hello everyone. Welcome to another NFL team preview for the 2020 season. Today we're talking about the last team in the AFC North. We're going to wrap that division up today, and that is none other than the Cincinnati Bengals. So let's begin. So the Bengals enter this season as the worst team in the league from last season, having only won 2 games and therefore being the first overall selection in the 2020 NFL Draft. So they'll be looking to go up, which is the only place they have left to go, anywhere but up. So this team last year was bit by the injury bug a little bit early, Jonah Williams being the most prominent name that everybody remembers from before the season even began, and everything just kind of fell off the wagon after that. There was a point last year where there was a fan actually living on his rooftop who swore to never come down until the Bengals won a game, and it took a long time for them to get him off the roof after once they finally won a game against the Jets. I believe they also closed out their season with a win against the Browns, which that had to hurt for Cleveland. So with only 2 wins, this team didn't go into last season as a heavy favorite to finish last. Everybody kind of picked on the Dolphins, who ended up winning 5 games. But this team on paper just didn't pan out, and the injuries were just too much, and the quarterback play wasn't very good. So how does all that change? Well, let's first talk about the 2019 statistics. Overall record of 2-14, which we've already mentioned. Offense was 26 overall. They were 25th in passing, 19th in rushing. Their defense was 29th overall, 21st against the pass, and 32nd against the run. Dead last in the league in run defense. Zach Taylor enters his 2nd season as the Bengals head coach with a career record overall of 2-14. He's only had 1 season so far. And snapshot of the previous 4 years for the Bengals. 2018 they went 6-10. 2017 they went 7-9. 2016 they went 6-9-1. And in 2015 they went 12-4. That 2015 season feels like it was decades ago, not just 5 years. Anyway, I didn't really get to talk about this last year because I wasn't doing these videos, but it's still kind of astonishing to me that the Bengals went with the hiring choice that they did in Zach Taylor, having only been a quarterback's coach for the Rams for a year, I believe. So I don't know if that is if they chose him because they give him the credit for Jared Goff's development in that year, or if they chose him because, hey, this is a guy that's part of the Sean McVay coaching staff. Sean McVay is really exciting and good. Maybe we'll just pick from that and hope for the best. So it remains to be seen, but in the first year of not being able to successfully corral Andy Dalton and turn him into something where everybody else had failed, makes me curious about what he's going to be able to do with Joe Burrow. So, but anyway, taking a look at this roster, we had a lot of turnover in the offseason. There's a lot of free agents that have left. There's a lot of new free agents and draft picks that will be rushed into key roles. And let's go ahead and just talk about the depth chart as it is right now. We're going to start with the defense and the secondary. We have Bates and Bell. For the corners, we have Jackson, and I went with Trey Wayne. I know they also did sign Mackenzie Alexander, but Mackenzie Alexander is on a 1-year prove-it deal. And so I think he's probably best suited for nickel duty. So yes, the Bengals have sort of raided the Vikings cornerback cupboard, which the Vikings were not able to afford all of those players anymore. So the Bengals are now the benefactors of that situation. Trey Wayne, I've watched play for a number of years. Frustrating at times, at other times pretty good. I think you guys are going to get 2 really solid options for your secondary, and it should help you improve, especially from 21st overall in pass defense. Trey Wayne's, I don't think ever really lived up to his draft potential or the spot where he was taken in. I believe he was a top 10 selection X number of years ago. Somebody will have to fact check me on that, but it is what it is at this point. Moving on to the linebacker position, Preston Brown no longer here, Nick Vigil no longer here. So we have Jermaine Pratt as the only returning Bengal with experience on this team. And then they brought in Bynes and drafted Logan Wilson from Wyoming to hopefully fill in the other positions. This position is night and day compared to the days of Vontaze Burfict being here. They also drafted Akeem Davis Gaithers. Name slips me at this moment. But that's another option down the pipeline. For your defensive line, we have Dunlap, who was the leader in sacks last year with 9. They signed Reeder in the offseason to hopefully plug that porous run defense. Geno Atkins returns, and they also have Hubbard on the other side. Moving to the offensive line. Now, this is the part where we'll go a little bit more in depth. We have Jonah Williams returning from injury from last year, has little to no experience in the pros because of the injury. but they hope to start him at left tackle this year immediately. We have Michael Jordan at the left guard position. Hopkins has won the center position. Suafilo is the right guard, and Hart is the right tackle. This is sort of a patchwork offensive line that hopefully can protect Joe Burrow enough to not watch him slip into some sort of like terrible, awful running for your life situation. Jonah Williams is probably the best of the group, but it's unfortunate that he didn't get to play last year because of the injury, so he is a little bit behind. As far as the center position goes, I don't think you're going to see Billy Price win that job back. I think it's Hopkins to lose. Billy Price is probably now just an interior swing offensive lineman as a backup, and he probably will get some playing time at guard to see if he's able to win a job in that spot. And as far as the right tackle position, Hart comes over to sort of fix that spot, but I believe that to be a temporary fix. I don't think he's good enough to last beyond maybe 1 or 2 seasons. For the skill position players, we have AJ Green returning from injury. Hopefully he is 100%. I would love to see him close out his career on a high note. We also have Tyler Boyd and John Ross. John Ross seems to be the enigma of the group, who has a few good plays or one good game per season, and then he just sort of drifts off into meaninglessness. And I was watching a lot of Bengals fans on the internet talk about John Ross and what their expectations for him is this year. And everybody seems to think, oh yeah, he'll have one game where he catches 2 really long touchdowns and then we'll never hear from him again. He'll go right to the injured list. Some people are more optimistic and thinking, hey, he's probably going to get 700 yards and 6 scores, which I kind of hope that works out. This offense could be pretty dynamic if John Ross can figure himself out and stay healthy. Tyler Boyd is very good. AJ Green is phenomenal. So the passing offense, has potential. Moving on to the tight end position, you have Uzoma. I think that's how you pronounce it. And then their backup is Drew Sample, who is a blocking tight end. Fun fact. I actually looked it up today to make sure he was still on the roster, but Morse Boehringer is part of the Bengals right now, and he's listed as a tight end, which makes sense. He's 6'5", 250 pounds, but former, I believe, 6th-round pick wide receiver from Germany for the Minnesota Vikings a number of years ago, who never made it beyond the practice squad. But as I check, as of this morning, as of this recording, he's still on the roster, so I kind of hope he works out in Cincinnati. I'd love to see him play. Moving on to the quarterback position, Andy Dalton is out. Joe Burrow is in. The talk of the town for the LSU National Championship quarterback is none other than Joe Burrow. What I expect out of him this year, it really depends on how well the offensive line plays. Like I said, it's a patchwork offensive line, and being a Vikings fan, I know all too well what happens when your offensive line is not very good. So it really depends on how well Jonah Williams can step in and protect him, and how well everybody else sort of gels together, and maybe we see Billy Price take over another position at guard if he can stay healthy. For the backfield, we have Joe Mixon, the starting running back, who, despite what you think of him off the field, pretty good on the field. I'm not the biggest fan of his, but he is successful in this offense. And they also have Giovanni Bernard around, who is entering his 8th season. He's been here for a while. So that is sort of your depth chart, or your potential starting depth chart for the Cincinnati Bengals. A lot of question marks on the offensive line, a lot of question marks in the linebacker department. And it's also going to be interesting to see how the newly acquired free agents beef up the secondary. This team could go a number of ways, especially on defense. Are they good enough now to not being dead last in rush defense? Yeah, maybe. They've made some significant upgrades, but the problem is going to be when the running back gets to the second level, are the linebackers going to be good enough? That remains to be seen. I think Jermaine Pratt is probably good enough. The other ones, wild cards. Moving on to their schedule for the 2020 season, they open up against the Chargers at home. Then we've got road games against the Browns and the Eagles, a home game against the Jaguars, Ravens and Colts on the road, and then Browns and Titans at home. Now, I'm going to point out here in a minute that I know I've said a lot of optimistically good, favorable things about team schedules so far in the series, but I'm just picking out little details that I think could give fan bases some hope when it comes to the schedule if things go accordingly and the stars align. The second half of the season, we open up Week 10 after the bye week against the Steelers, on the road against the Washington Redskins. Week 12, we're in Week 12, we're not opening anything. Week 12 at home against the Giants, Week 13 on the road against the Dolphins, then we've got Dallas and Pittsburgh at home, Texans on the road in Week 16, and then close out the season at home against the Ravens in Week 17. So if you'll notice, all of the road games against division rivals end after the 10th week. There's no more road games against the Steelers, Ravens, or Browns. Those are all out of the way. before week 11. So that is an interesting little tidbit of information that I think if the Bengals can actually find fire really quickly and this team gels and Joe Burrow comes in and just, sort of blows us away for the second time in as many years, that this team could find itself in a good spot to make a run at the end. Because if you take a look at the end, you have Washington, you have the Giants, you have the Dolphins. Those are all three very winnable games. Home games against the Steelers, a home game against the Cowboys. Those are tough opponents, but at least you get the benefit of playing in your own stadium. A road game against the Texans, not the most threatening team in the world anymore. And then a home game against the Ravens, who are probably going to be settling down into their first or second, first or second seed for the playoffs, entering, getting rested for their bye weeks, potentially by that point in the season. So the Ravens, unless they're in an actively competitive mode to secure a better playoff spot, they might be taking their foot off the gas at that point. So that second half of the schedule, depending on how the first goes, could be pretty favorable. Of course, we don't know anything at this point, but from an outsider's perspective, I could see that being from week 10 to week 17 on as a favorable portion of their schedule, and for those reasons. Three big storylines I'm looking at for the Bengals this year. Number one, the offensive line. We've talked about it being a patchwork with little experience playing together. And how are the injuries going to resurface this year if they do at all, and how do they navigate those? Can Jonah Williams be the left tackle that I thought he was 2 years ago coming out of the draft from Alabama? Internally, I believe yes. Have we seen it on the field? No. We still have to wait and see how he does. Can Hart limit his penalties at the right tackle position? He was penalized a lot last year. Just a piece of information that I noticed when I was preparing for this video. As far as the rest of the offensive line goes, can they do better in pass protection to make sure Joe Burrow has adequate development? We'll have to find out. Number two big storyline, John Ross. We've mentioned him a little bit before. Is he going to do a one-and-done disappearing act again this season, or can he finally unlock his full potential that made him a first-round pick X number of years ago? He's really fast, but he has trouble hanging on to the ball, and outside of a few really spectacular highlight plays, we haven't really seen much out of him, and I think fans expect more out of him this year than last. And for the third and final storyline is the run defense. The linebackers are very inexperienced. Jermaine Pratt is your most experienced linebacker, and if that were my team in this situation, I would be like, wow, that's a little bit of a problem heading into the season. So there's a number of things to watch as the Bengals enter the 2020 season, and it's a team I'll actually probably enjoy watching this year just to see how it is they progress from last year after going 2-14. All right, so that's going to do it for this video. It went a little bit longer than I thought, but I had a lot to say about this roster. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.